Richard. This is We're Not Wizards, and today on 6 Degrees of Expectation we are looking at Florence, which is currently on Kickstarter, or is about to be on Kickstarter, depending on when you're looking at this. But 6 Degrees of Expectation is what you can expect when you get a game to the table. Florence itself is published by Braincrack Games. It's designed by Dean Morris with a solo mode designed by David Turtsey and Xavier Bordez. The game itself is illustrated by Dan May. In essence, Florence is a worker placement game. What we mean by that is that you will be given a set of meeples or components or characters or whatever you want to call them, and you'll be placing them on the board, and by placing your characters on the board, that will grant you certain effects, certain rewards, or allow you even certain actions as well. The game centres around the city of Florence in the time of the Medici. Basically, you're one of the noble families that is trying to gain their attention, their love, their affirmation, potentially phone numbers, who knows, but there is an opulent carnival going on and you are trying to chase the various members of the Medici family round the city of Florence in order to grab their attention, even though they're going about in carriages which potentially can't go anywhere because there's no horses. But who knew? The gameplay itself is relatively straightforward. You're going to be chasing these fine people. Contessina, there's Cosimo, and there's also Giovanni, and they're going to be roaming the city in their horseless carriages from party to party. And you're going to be trying to line up in order to gain their attention. On every round, it's all governed by this dial. And this dial decides a couple of different things. It decides how much time you're going to get at the beginning of the round, because your movement and everything is defined by time. It's going to define where the members of the Medici family are going to be travelling to. It's also going to define the kind of rewards that everybody's going to get if they manage to be in the right place at the right time when the Medici family are stopping. And it's all based on this lovely dial, which changes at the end of every round. You've got 9 rounds, and at the end of every round, one of these members of these families will move. You're essentially, the kind of game is splitting it into 2 parts, where you're kind of preparing your family to be in the best part of the board and kind of as up front in the queue as possible. And then the second part is when the current member of the Medici family is going to go on their travels around the board until they reach their destination, and everybody at the front of the queue is going to get rewarded, and then at their destination they're going to get rewarded on victory points. And it also depends on the character that's going to be doing the moving. Cosimo was quite simple. They are going to be basically saying, right, everybody step on board, I'll give you 10 victory points, you get 7 victory points, you get 3 victory points, you get 2 victory points. Contessa, on the other hand, is kind of like, she's a bit funny. They don't like debutantes. They're not going to be rewarding debutantes if they're in the queue. Giovanni, he's a bit selfish. He likes people to spend time. He's quite happy to see you, but in order for you to spend any time with him, you've got to spend time that you have on your dial. You've got a huge number of meeples here that you have to play with. And you've got a couple of moves that you can actually play on your turn. You can play as many different actions as long as you've got the time on your tower block. So, in your turn, you might want to dispatch a debutante to an area where there's not been someone before, or even to kind of join the queue. And that uses time. You might want to upgrade or promote one of your existing debutantes into the next level up. You've got debutantes, you've got donnas, and then you've got the all-powerful maestros. And the reason for doing this is as people join the queue and you play the game, depending on the ranking that you have, you will jump the queue accordingly. basically. You can move your pieces around the city as well, but that's going to take some time too. You can brag, and what that means is as the game progresses and you're starting to kind of earn or have control over certain places, or have your kind of your various members of your family in different parts in Florence, you've got the option to then go ahead and claim victory points in each of these brag spots, which becomes important later on. If you're lucky enough to have a character which is in the same area or in the same area of the city as one of the Medici, then you can even give them kind of like a little gift. And then that'll allow you to take a gift, give a gift to the member of the Medici you want. So I'm going to give this to Cosimo there, but Cosimo, what they're going to do is they're going to give me a guard. And then that guard, what I can do is I can place that on a spot in the city. Now what that means is that when I'm moving, for instance, rather than it costing me 1 unit of time for me to move because I've got a guard there, I don't have to move, and you get different benefits depending on who you're giving gifts to. And this is all building up, so as the round goes and you're moving time and you're adding on characters and you're moving people kind of up and down the queue and adding on guards depending on where people are, the time finishes off and everybody hands in their ring to say that they've no longer got the ability to play. That is when your next member, they'll move, and then the rewards will be handed out. Then what happens at the end of the round, you've got the clean-up section, and it all comes back down to this dial. The dial decides the rewards that each of the Medici family give you, but also then spins round. We remove a location, and then we'll pick a timepiece from the shuffled deck. That goes there. And then there'll also be a location to add, which will be a random one, but it'll not be one that's been played before. It'll be a fresh one to make sure that nobody's visiting the same area twice. You get more time, your time gets added on. We now know who's going to be moving on this round. We know the rewards that people are going to get. And then it all starts again. People start spending time and potentially playing scandal cards as well if they've managed to pick them up at the round 2. In terms of winning, the winner is decided after 9 rounds when the last member of the Medici family has moved to the last spot on the board, and then after that you will tot up all of the points, the victory points that you've gained, and the person who's got the furthest round the victory track is then declared the winner. In terms of learning, Florence follows the brain crack standard, and that is rules that are well explained. There's box outs, there's areas that they actually draw to your attention that are important parts of the rules that you have to grasp and learn. And actually the rule book flows extremely well through the entire explanation, which is kind of required because this is a medium type game, kind of almost in terms of the amount of thinking that you need to do. There are multiple different things that you need to take into consideration if you're going on the path to victory with regards to the scoring. So therefore, a couple of games, you're not going to see everything that Florence offers, or certainly learn about the best kind of strategy to adopt. You've got to take into account kind of everything from where the Medici's family are moving to where you are going to be in the queue, to whether or not you're going to have the scandal cards, to where you're going to be taking on your your bragging. You've even got to take into account kind of like the route that potentially the family member is going to take. So it all adds up to being a potentially large learning experience. But again, the rule book that Brain Crack have provided in this has been put together extremely, extremely well. Though I would suggest when you're first learning the game, the best thing for you to do would be to set up the game and play it almost like a couple of rounds until you kind of get familiar with the different mechanics that you're going to be looking out for in the game itself. In terms of looks, this is a visual feast. You can see just with 2 players on the board the potential for this game to get extremely busy, and also because of the nature, extremely colourful as well. With different members of your own, your Donnas and your Maestros all over the board, as well as your debutantes with the actual Medici carriages being in there. This does nothing but build up the theme for the game, how it looks. The artwork by Dan May on this is fantastic. It's bright, it's colourful. Again, it kind of helps to emphasise the kind of the setting where the game is on. Everything from the player boards, and even, the meeples themselves. You could have gone down the easy route with this game. Braincrack have decided to go all out in terms of actually giving each of the meeples their own distinct kind of shape, which when they're on the board you can notice straight away. And because there's so much going on, and because there's the queuing that you have to take into account, you need to be able to look at the board quite quickly and see what you need to be able to take a good look at the board and see pretty quickly what your next kind of move should be. And should I say any more? Obviously, again, apart from where's the horses, but carriages like this on the guests, people are gonna stop when they see this game out just to see how it looks. It does look wonderful. In terms of time, a good game is probably going to take, you say, about 20 minutes per player. I would expect maybe, and for your first game, 2 or 3 players, you're looking at probably about an hour, potentially over that hour and a half, maybe, just while everybody's learning it. I could quite easily see this with full 5 players lasting a good kind of 2.5 hours. However, once people get, understand the mechanics and understand what they're doing, it is going to be a case that people are going to kind of whiz along. There'll be a lot of thinking, and it gives you a little bit of time to do some thinking when it's your turn, and you'll be rattling down your pieces where you want them to go. But again, kind of give yourself an afternoon, and that should give you plenty of time to get the game on the table, get it learned, and get it packed away. Question is, so did it live up to expectations? And the answer is very easily yes. For a game that looks quite daunting when you first set it up with it on the table, with all the kind of the iconography in place, the different cues, the number of kind of meeples that you have. For, let's face it, for a normal kind of worker placement type game, it wouldn't be unusual for you to only have maybe 3 or 4 meeples, but here you've got an entire kind of smorgasbord of components that you have to play with, from your gifts to your bragging cards to your various kind of family members that you have. So in that case, it does kind of feel daunting at the very beginning, and even looking at the dial itself, you can look at that and it just doesn't make any sense at all until you actually start playing the game. Once you do start to play the game, everything kind of gets in, kind of relatively quickly kind of clicks into place. It's almost easier if you divide the game into 2 sides, your first side being your preparation part, where you are preparing for the next member of the Medici family to be going on their journey around the board, and the second part is the kind of what you do to kind of what you're doing when you're kind of maximising the kind of the point scoring that's going on as well. Certain things that I love, I have a lot of appreciation for a game that would appear to take up an awful lot of space, but actually you can quite easily fit all of your components and everything that you need in a very, very small space. Everything can fit on your player board, which drastically reduces the amount of space that you need. I kind of appreciate that kind of thing, especially when you get games that seem to go on for years, in terms of them thinking that you actually own a kind of a 20 by 20 kind of foot table. I'm a huge fan of this dial, of what it does to the game and how it actually changes almost instantly the strategies as you play from round to round. And I like the fact that everybody ends up being focused on a particular area as we're deciding which member of the Medici family is going to be moving kind of next. And again, it's very, very kind of easy to learn once you do grasp it, but there's a lot of kind of layers and there's a lot of strategy that's going to learn to see you through. So if you're the type of person who really likes worker placement and has been used to kind of like a maybe an easier worker placement, if you've been sitting there with viticulture for a while and you're thinking about maybe taking a step to the side or a step slightly up, then I think Florence, again, would maybe be something that would suit you quite well. Those looking for like an entry-level one, like Waterdeep, this is a huge jump up from something like Waterdeep in terms of the level that you're going into, the kind of the complicated side of things. However, it is explained very well, which means that if you do give it the time and give it a patience, I think you'd be able to grasp this quite quickly. It looks lovely on the table. I love the lack of horses on these carriages. I'm just wondering how they get about the city. Maybe they make somebody push. Maybe that's your job. You get the guards to push the carriages round the city. So that's 6 Degrees of Expectation for Florence from Braincrack Games. It's going to be on Kickstarter, potentially by the time you see this, if not just after. My name's Richard, this is We're Not Wizards. If you like what you've seen today, then please just drop us a subscription. If you played one of the other kind of Braincrack games in the family, like Ragusa, for instance, then leave a comment and let us know what you think of that game itself. But until the next time, stay safe, roll carriages. Don't even roll. Rubbish game. Make something awful. But until the next time, goodbye.